Let me welcome you to the Abuja Center. Let's thank Charles this morning. And we are introducing a rather different conversation from this Abuja Center this morning. Is President Ahmed Bola Tinubu restructuring Nigeria from the back door? That's a question we want to address. And you seem to understand why we're raising this question. Nigeria has 3 tiers of government as provided by the Constitution: the federal, the state, and the local governments. But in the course of this conversation, you discover that Nigeria is almost having a 4th tier of government. To discuss this very contentious matter with me this morning is somebody who is qualified in every material particular to help educate us. I have with me Dr. Abdurrahman Abu Hamisu. He is a political scientist and is a lecturer at the University of Abuja. I think that university's name has been changed.
Yes.
First of all, Dr. Hamisu, let me welcome you to.
It's my pleasure. Good morning.
It's no longer University of Abuja. What is it now?
Well,
Yakubu Gowon
University. The students are protesting it.
Yeah, but is there a law to that effect yet?
No, there's
no law yet.
It's just a pronouncement.
It's a pronouncement.
Yes, from what I understand.
Okay, so at least I'm still within my rights to call you a lecturer
yes,
at the University of Abuja.
Even the signages at the university has not been changed to reflect that very particular pronouncement. So I think for now, University of Abuja is subsisting.
Thank you very much. Now, Dr. Hamisu, if we look at the 1999 Constitution as amended, it provides for 3 tiers of government: the federal, state, and local governments. And in that Constitution, the responsibilities of each tier are specified, even though there are some overlaps, the ones they call concurrent authority, concurrent powers. And if each of these tiers of government performs its responsibility within those specified areas, Nigeria should develop. That is the intent of the Constitution. Let me just ask you, just for the sake of it, are those tiers performing as well as you expect?
No, they are not. You see, the problem of Nigeria is the problem of our elite not understanding what governance is, and not even understanding the difference between private interest and public interest. Both can commingle with the supervision of the public realm, not private realm supervising the public realm. When you have the private realm supervising the public realm, then there is a problem, and that is what we often call corruption, because private interests will supersede public interest, and where private interests supersede public interest, then we have a challenge, and that challenge will be governance failure, because what will underpin governance will not be public interest, but the interest of those that are manning the organs of the state. And that is why in the 1999 Constitution, we have 3 tiers of government on paper, but in practice, we have 2 tiers, the federal and the state. And the local government is subsumed under the state until the Supreme Court judgment. The state virtually took over the local government. Allocations to local government are passed through the state. And cleverly, they always tell us they have a counterpart for funding for projects. It's a clever way of spending local government money without the input of the local government. So another problem is we impose our whims and caprices as the needs of the people. In other words, we cleverly exploit the needs of the people, their genuine agitation, to pursue ends that may not in the end benefit the very persons that are agitating for such a thing. So, for instance, we want 3 tiers of government, the framers of the Constitution listened to people. People submitted a memorandum across the nation. They collated it. They went to states and other things. And the consensus was we need 3 tiers of government. Here we have it on paper, 3 tiers of government, but operationally, 2 tiers of government. The same thing when you talk about Nigerian Federation. It is a federation on paper, but it's a unitary system of government in practice. So such aberrations are too many. And that is why we're having the kind of challenges we're having today. And what are the challenges? We know that what is happening in Nigeria is where you have the whims and caprices of leaders dominating governance that's supposed to provide public goods, services, in all that. And we call it corruption, and up to today we are not able to tackle it. So when people say the problem of Nigeria is corruption, I laugh. It's not corruption on its own, that corruption is happening the way breeze will blow across the country.
It's individual.
It's individuals.
Yeah.
So it is the sum total of our irresponsibilities and the knack to abuse public office that we put together and we say corruption. So when we say corruption, we are not looking at what you are doing, but I'm looking at what Mr. Njoko is doing. So Mr. Njoko's corruption is corruption, Abdurrahman's corruption is corruption, but my own corruption is not corruption. So, and that is why we have this problem in Nigeria. By the time a government leaves power, that is when you hear Nigerians say this government is worse than the previous government. But when in power, they only insinuate that it seems this government too is corrupt, but they will not be able to talk about it simply because we are designed not to look at what is happening presently, but what has gone.
Dr. Hamisu, let us look at the Constitution and the responsibilities assigned to different tiers of government. If you look at that document, there are areas of national development assigned to the federal government, those to the states and those to local governments. A number of people have said that, in fact, these tiers of government are Nigeria's lost leaders. Yes. The federal government, the president of the federal government, of the federation, has powers to create ministries. Yes. And they are supposed to be instruments by which the federal government runs business as provided for in the Constitution. Yes. Am I right?
Yes.
Be patient with me. Let me just go back a little bit in history. After the Civil War, or in fact in the course of the Civil War, yes, there came up the politics of national survival. And the military government, in a master stroke, balkanized the regions so that no one region would be strong enough to oppose the federal government. Thereafter, there was the 1979 Constitution, and that was when the federal government became the owner of all minerals under the soil. It was also a means of holding strong to oil, which was Nigeria's major cash cow. But as time went on, there became the politics of oil. People in the Niger Delta, from whose region the oil came, began to agitate. And the derivation principle, 13%, was injected. But when it didn't serve, the federal government created the Niger Delta Development Commission. In other words, Niger Delta Development Commission was an interventionist agency by the federal government to address a problem. Is my account, does it make meaning?
Yeah.
Thank you. An interventionist agency, is it supposed to perpetuate?
No. No. For every intervention, there is a lifespan, because it is meant to solve a present problem, and after that, it ceases to exist. We have the case of the commission that was mandated to rebuild the Southeast after the Civil War. Though whether they were able to rebuild the Southeast or not is still being discussed. But again, there was two things we can take from that. One was that there was a need to not only wait on government, but to fast track the process. And they know that if they are going to wait on government, it's going to be annual budget. So, the ministries, sometimes they are engaged in what they know how to do best, delaying the process in the name of their following due process. And before you know, months will roll into years and nothing is achieved. And the federal government felt the best way to tackle the problem was to create an agency that's supposed to handle the rebuilding. And remarkably, if you check history and the literature on the rebuilding, the persons that were charged with those responsibilities perform extremely well in terms of management of resources, unlike what is happening today, where you charge people with public resources and the next thing is billions start disappearing from public coffers without anything to show. So, and then within this stipulated period of time that one particular agency was supposed to intervene, it was phased out to allow normal governance process to continue. Okay, what distinguishes that period with this period is the level of honesty that we have to say that we are sticking to the rules. Today, we cleverly break the rules, thinking we are smart, but we are not smart. Public governance is about operating within the ambit of the law, what the law stipulated. I remember, as you rightly pointed out, when the issue of Niger Delta came up between 1999 to 2003 up to 2007, it was highly debated in the Senate. All the actors from North and South participated, and they all saw the need to ensure that Niger Delta is really given some level of concession to develop that particular region. The last time we had a review of what
Niger Delta has done, NDDC.
Yes. The anchor, the NT, real out statistics, and she said since inception to date, Niger Delta Development Commission had received in total in US dollars 40 billion US dollars. And the question that was asked is, what was there
to show for it
with this amount of money? Now, you have a problem as a region. You came to other Nigerians to support your quest. There were protests, some people were killed, some people laid down their lives in the struggle, starting from Isaac Dakaboro, that started the uprising in 1956. And all of the sacrifices of these persons have been forgotten, and some people are driving SUVs with their bloods. And then you continue to tell us that your region is not developed, you're asking for more money. And what I usually tell people is not more money, but what did you do with the little that we give to you? If we start holding our people accountable, there will be no governance failure.
Okay, but Mamisu, in other words, that NDDC,
yes,
if it had achieved what it was set out to achieve, it should have been phased out.
Just like the way we phased out the one that's supposed to rebuild
the Southeast.
Yes.
Now, I want to draw your attention to something else. After NDDC,
yes,
then came Northeast Development Commission,
yes,
because there was also a peculiar situation.
yes.
Then there was a Northwest Development Commission.
Yes.
Then there came a Southwest Development Commission. And then the Southeast said, we are marginalized, and they were given a Southeast Development Commission. And just about 4 days ago, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu signed into law the North Central Development Commission.
Yes.
In other words, all the zones of the country, all the 6 zones of the country, require intervention from the federal government. Dr. Hamisu, 2 things. Is it not a clear indication of the failure of that structure of our federation, the states and local governments, requiring a super subnational structure to help them out?
You see, I think what President Ahmed Bola Tinubu is doing is to run away from the problems. And they can't run too far from the problems. The problem of Nigeria, the governance failure we're talking about, that has undermined the local government, that has undermined the state, that has continued to undermine the federal government, is abuse of office. It's corruption. And this corruption we're talking about derives from the political ideology, the political economic ideology of Nigeria, which is built on individualism. And where you have individualism and you have what is called liberal democracy, where interest is what conditions people to act. You see, nations develop because leaders feel they should do the right things so that they can protect generations yet unborn, preserve the integrity of the country, and equally protect the honor of the men and women of those societies. So in our own case in Nigeria, our personal interest overrides everything. I just gave you an instance about the Niger Delta Development Commission, where it was stated that almost 40 billion US dollars has been received and nothing to show for it. And then who says that most of these commissions that are springing up now may not do the same thing, just like the Niger?
I want to also draw attention to the staffing,
Yes.
please, of these commissions.
Yes.
The DGs, as announced, come from those zones.
Yes.
I also understand
Yes.
that the preponderance of the staff of those commissions are drawn from the states making up the zones, with a sprinkling of other Nigerians there.
Yes.
In other words, we are creating zonal governance structure.
Yes.
Does that not undermine, wrong counter to the three-tier structure Nigeria has?
Okay, before I come to your question, I wanted to make a point.
Yes.
As you rightly pointed out, if the Niger Delta has a problem and needed intervention, and the federal government in its wisdom said, okay, we're giving you intervention agency, Niger Delta Development Commission is understandable. But what we are saying is, they do obey the timeline, because we are saying go and solve a problem, and we realize that you are not even solving those problems. The resources, yes, the resources are not even getting to the people. And even the leadership, look at what happened in Niger Delta Development Commission. Just to choose the leadership because of the money that is involved became another problem, leading to a war between the elites and the actors in that very particular zone. Now you come to the Northeast, and Northeast has a peculiar problem, which is our security situation. And Mr. President, that is former President Muhammadu Buhari, feel that they need a concrete intervention, not ad hoc intervention, the way we have a PINE, which is a presidential initiative on the Northeast, before it metamorphosed into presidential committee on the Northeast initiative. And I now said, look, we need a permanent agency because the problems are too much. And then there was a bill in the National Assembly granting the people of the Northeast Development Commission to intervene for a certain period of time. And I'm sure they are doing a very good job compared to what the Niger Delta Development Commission said. Now, the point you've raised, which is what I want to address now, is the politicization of commissions.
Interventionist agencies.
Yes. You have a concrete structures that are not performing, that have failed. Now, if we use commission as a remedy in the Niger Delta, we use commission as a remedy in the Northeast, I think we need to put a stop to it to say that the major structures of governance, the 3 tiers that we are talking about, should be repositioned to offer services that led to failures of governance, which led to the agitations and the wars in the 3 zones that we've mentioned: the Southeast, the South, and then the Northeast. Now, we've used commission to intervene in these particular areas. So, if we're a serious nation, it would have said it is high time we stopped these irresponsibilities, so that local government can become functional, state government can become functional, the federal government can become functional. And if you look at it critically, most of the roles that are meant for local government in France, in Germany, in America, are the functions that federal government has hijacked, sharing some of those with local government, with state government. When you go to the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and you see the roles and responsibilities that are reserved for the local government, you weep. For instance, registration of wheelbarrow, registration of bicycle, building of cemeteries, market store, right? Whereas in America, it's local government that are building universities. It's local government that are building universities. Even to sink borehole, it's federal agencies that are doing it. And then you say you want to bring governance close to the people. And this is not working based on the reasons that we've adduced. One is corruption. The other thing, again, is our punchline to do something contrary to the Constitution. The third one is our whims and caprices, imposing them as what Nigerians want. So the politics is what I hate. Okay, because we've given to Southeast, we have to give to North Central, we have to, because of what? And this is what we normally say in the political science balance, that when these elder statesmen are thinking of next generation, and they will do things with their honor and integrity to protect the nation and protect the people, the politicians take decision based on next election.
In other words, this is to satisfy
Yes.
some agitations that if you don't, they can ruffle feathers for you.
Yes. And coming back to your second question about the staffing, we all know how staffing is done in this country. In China, I love using China because in 1956, the Chinese were looking for Nigerians under the non-aligned movement. The Indians were looking for Nigeria. The South Koreans were looking for Nigeria to be part of the non-aligned movement because they believe that Nigeria has something to offer. And these countries have gone, and I was watching a video quite interesting. Today, the Indians have landed in the moon. But when they started, they were transporting their machines on bicycles on their head. And the whole world was laughing at them. But today, they have a mission, they've accomplished it. But our arrogance will never allow us to learn. And what happened? In China, there is a general examination to recruit civil servants, public servants, whatever name you want to call them. It's one of the most rigorous and difficult elections examinations in China. Your honor and your integrity is always at stake when you're taking that examination. If you fail, that is when you go to private practice. And that is how they recruit their people. We were talking about a population of 1.7 billion. And today they are telling us that we cannot do that because Nigeria population the population is over 200 million. We are not even up to the 0.7 that the Chinese are managing. So it's in the management of the people. So we know how this recruitment is done. And go and check. This is a challenge to any Nigerian. Go and check the sons and daughters of the people that are working in NNPC. Go and check the sons and daughters
who will now work in these commissions
that are working in CBN. Go and check the names of the sons and daughters of who will be working in the commission. They are not going to be ordinary Nigerians that are driven by the need to succeed because you are told that if you are hardworking, the sky will be your limit. In Nigeria, if you are hardworking and there is no any big name, then there is a problem. So if care is not taken, the people that will populate these commissions will be people that facilitated the bill in the first place. So what has been happening right from the military era down to this era is that we create opportunity for boys, family members, friends to come and eat. And that was how we got some of our local government.
Dr. Hamisu, because I was going to take a break before I do that.
Yeah.
By that election principle,
Yes.
certain percentages of federally derived revenue goes to the federal government.
Yes.
And some percentage to the state
Yes.
and local government. For more than 4 or 5 years, there have been arguments of asking the federal government to divest some of its responsibilities and then let go some of its resources to the states and local governments. The argument has been those whom government should attend to are in those subnational levels.
Yes.
So to concentrate resources in the hands of the federal government was a misapplication of resources.
Of course.
Instead of creating a fourth tier government, the zonal governance structure, doesn't it make more sense to listen to the argument, to listen to the debate, and this federal government reduces the money it gets, reduces its size, and then makes funds available for the administration of governance at the level the people live? Doesn't it make sense?
Well, it makes sense. That is the right thing to do. But when you look at it again and you ask yourself this question, the resources that have been given to the state government over the years, what do they do with it? Since President Bola Ahmed Tinubu came, with its tax, whatever that has, and the increase in pump price of fuel, removal of subsidy, a lot of monies have accrued to the federal government, more than what you can think of. The chunk of it has gone to the state government. What do they do with it? That is the most sensible thing to do. To say that, look, if I'm the president of Nigeria, what I will do is 60% of our resources will go to local government. 60 will go to local government. And let's say 15 will go to state government. Because the state government is at the center, is not doing anything. The real power, the real people, the folks that we're talking about, that we refer to as Nigerians, reside in the local governments more than anywhere in the world. Then the federal government will manage things like foreign policy and so on and so forth, as it is being done in other places. That is the right thing to do. But you know, we're an entire state. And the question you ask yourself is this: why is it that Dangote establishes refinery? Is refining his crude, is buying from federal government of Nigeria. But NNPC is insisting that it wants to play the role of a middleman. So we have a middleman mentality.
Rent seeking.
Rent seeking. So what we need to do directly, we will not do it. We need intermediaries. So the federal government, right, has a lot of people to service their interests. So to take more resources away from the federal government is denying them the resources to service those interests rather than servicing the interest of Nigeria. So they prefer the opaque system. And if you ask federal agents, civil servants, the president himself and others, they will tell you the sharing formula should be reviewed in favor of federal government because they have a lot to do.
Dr. Hamisu, let us sympathize with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And on two scores, before I take a break, the president came on the mantra of being a Democrat.
Yes.
And the Afenifere platform, which he used to be a strong member of, kept agitating for restructuring.
Yes.
As at this morning we're talking, some Nigerians are insisting that for this country to work, it must be restructured.
Yes.
Maybe the president wants to respond to that pressure, but we'll talk about that when we come back. Please, I still have in my studio Dr. Hamisu Abu Hamisu, political scientist, a lecturer at University of Abuja, and we're addressing the question: is Bola Ahmed Tinubu, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, imposing a fourth tier of government on Nigeria? Is he trying to restructure Nigeria through the back door? We'll continue the conversation when we come back. Stay with us. Well, you're welcome back, still with Dr. Hamisu in the studio, still discussing whether the president is trying to restructure Nigeria from the back door or trying to impose a fourth tier of government on Nigeria. Dr. Hamisu, now, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, a Democrat, a man who was in the streets fighting against military, insisting on democracy, a man who cast his vote for restructuring of this country. He is now the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And some Nigerians are still insisting on reminding him of his own words: on restructure, we stand. And they say that has been done because that's the only thing that can make this behemoth to work. Dr. Hamisu, do you think that the president, by creating the zonal governance structure, using the instrumentality of zonal commissions, is he responding to the pressure on him to restructure Nigeria?
No, he has not responded to the pressure on him. If I get the issue of restructuring quite well, It is about physical restructuring, physical federalism. It's not about establishment of quasi-institutions that have a lifespan, whose budget will be, say, 45 billion every year. It is how the regions, as they were during colonial era, up to when General Yakubu Gowon balkanized them into 12 states, were relating with one another. During that period, each region has its own resources. They manage their resources, they exploit it, and they contribute to the federal government coffers. Now, as you earlier pointed out, arising from the Civil War, that was reversed. And everything is centralized. And from there, it is distributed to the state, taking into account many other things, because we don't even need the number of states that we have today in Nigeria to start with. Some of the states, if you take away their allocation in the next 2 weeks, they will collapse. So what is sustaining some of the states? Was because these allocations were, the resources were centralized, and they take into cognizance population, landmass, and so on and so forth into consideration. And a lot of people are saying that it is breeding laziness in some quarters. So something there to be done. And the modest attempt he has made is the tax reform bill that he has sent to National Assembly, which has generated a lot of controversies. Now, one thing I like about the tax reform is that it is put out there for people to
debate, to start debate.
Yes. In a democracy, it's about contestations. It's about reasoning together. It's about consultations. Now, when you ramp such critical bill through the National Assembly, through the back door, just the way we are witnessing with these very particular
North Central Development Commission, yes. Nobody ever heard about it.
Nobody heard about it. The next thing, boom, the Senate President
said, the bill have been signed.
Yes. So when you do that, it's no longer democracy. And I sympathize with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. I'm sure he's beginning to understand the danger of democracy now. It is easier to...
Doc, what did I hear? So, the danger of democracy.
Yes.
A political scientist talking about danger of democracy. I want to be educated.
Of course. You know, when he was outside, he understands the tenet of democracy more than anything else. He speaks democracy, he breathes democracy. Let me point out something to you. Today, people that are highly critical of the government are being arrested as we speak now. There were people that wished President Buhari death. They were never arrested. You know why it is like that? He now understands better the contention between public order and freedom. Where lies the demarcation? Because as a president, what you want to see is order and orderliness. And then you have a democracy that said everybody is free, you can say anything, you can do anything. Where does that leave a country? Chaos. So there must be what? Orderliness. And you see, that is what Shehu Sani told him at the villa. He said, Mr. President, if our children are protesting today and they are being arrested, what are you telling us? Because they learned the act of protest from you, which is the fact.
And the system in that time did not arrest you?
No, the system did not arrest you. Even when the system was trying to arrest you, people were sympathetic with you. They smuggled you out of Nigeria and you were operating, you are in and out of Nigeria. This is a conversation I wanted to have in terms of what we want. Is it order or is it democracy? Because if you say democracy, there is the danger of chaos. Because everybody will assume they have the responsibility to say anything, to do anything.
Of course they have.
They have.
It is their country.
And then it is
your have
constitutional, yes, and it is your constitutional responsibility to ensure that there is order. Not only order, but orderliness within the society. And how do you do that? By enforcing order. Right? So that is the clash that we need to solve. Having said that, For a Democrat of its nature, I expected that whatever the president is doing should be in the public domain. It should provide a platform for people to agitate. I bet you, if he had done what he did with subsidy removal, I said he was ill-informed. He was just stepping into the saddle. He has not received briefings. He has not monitored the situation. Because there is a great difference between official reports and the reality on ground. Because public servant has one attitude, and the attitude is simple. Let me look good in the presence of my boss to protect my job. So that they always keep their bosses in dark. And that was why when former President Buhari was there, he asked him, he said, I'm not aware. Because he believes that he need to rely on the formal channels of reporting, getting information. So you could imagine his shock by the time he's confronted with hard facts to say, Mr. President, what is this, what we are telling you? He said, I'm unaware. So the same thing, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, without studying the consequences and the precarious
situation in which Nigerians were plunged,
but out of euphoria of office or because he want to fulfill his promises. From Eagle Square, he said he has removed subsidy. And up to today, he's still grappling with the challenges from that.
Because people are following our conversation.
Yes.
And they also want to enjoy the facts we are presenting.
Yes.
Please, in creating these development commissions,
yes,
the federal government is pushing resources.
Yes.
To a different mechanism of governance,
yes,
isn't it?
Yes.
But attend to challenges, problems in these zones.
Yes.
Why would the president prefer commissions to pushing resources to the states?
You see,
because to me that is simple,
yes,
and that is resource allocation for more effective governance. No matter what may be the weaknesses of the states and local governments, there are organs of agencies of government that can keep track of misdemeanor, corruption, mismanagement of public funds, that can extract and impose punishment. So why not push these resources you are using to establish quasi-governance structure to the states and local governments? Because you still want to be in control?
That is exactly the point I made earlier on. That if Northeast, deserve a Northeast Development Commission, and those persons managing the resources they are trying, in terms of corruption, abuse of office, have not really seen where those issues have come to the fore compared to the Niger Delta Development Commission. And I used to say that this upcoming commission should learn from the Northeast Development Commission because of the little they are doing. Now, what we need to do as a nation is to strengthen governance by ensuring that there is massive anti-corruption, not the drama that we are seeing. We're talking about a proactive anti-corruption measure that stops you on the track before you even commit the corruption. Not the one that will allow you to commit the corruption. Then we spend money to investigate. We spend money to put you in the cell.
And feed you.
Then we spend money to prosecute. So at the end of it all, and that is why you see that our anti-corruption agency, with due respect, EFCC is looking like a multi-national corporation, an headquarter of multinational corporation. Because what we are doing to fight corruption is too much. And the budget to fight corruption is too much. And if you look at it again, you ask yourself, is it worth it to even fight the corruption with the billions that are going into fighting this corruption? What I know is other countries of the world, the anti-corruption agency stops you on the track, right from the planning stage. To say like this, oh, look, this will not fly, this will not work, this is a scam, right? So this is what countries are doing. But Abacha did the same thing. When Abacha realized that anti-corruption war was not happening in Nigeria, it was not yielding the desired result, what did Abacha do? He circumvented the civil servant as a whole, and he brought PTF. And the last buses PTF delivered to our tertiary institutions, Their carcasses are on the campus up to today. We could not manage them. We could not replace them. The hospitals that PTF was supplying, after those, what happened? We reverted to the civil servants. And before you know it, the same DA of a medical center is being charged with corruption after 4 years. Because Abacha said, look, I was not going to spend money to fight corruption. But I know of trusted Nigerians that can implement
directly and transparently.
So he kept the civil servant functioning. They are recording transactions and they are paying them salaries without having to dismiss anybody. But again, the PTF was there doing the work that they need to do. And even some roads were rehabilitated. Many roads were rehabilitated under PTF. And if you talk about corruption within PTF, I've seen a lot of studies that investigated PTF. I have not seen a corruption.
Where corruption was a major issue.
A major issue.
I want to reason, unless you still have your thoughts on, but I want to examine a major issue.
Yes.
In this conversation,
yes,
been talking about President Bola Ahmed Tinubu establishing this, President trying to establish a fourth-tier government. Yes. Is he trying to respond to the pressure on restructuring, blah, blah, blah. The National Assembly is culpable in this whole thing. Yeah. NDDC has a law enacted by the National Assembly. Northeast Development Commission has a law establishing it. And Dr. Hamisu, it appears to me that since the president signed a law, yes, a bill into law about 4 days ago,
yes,
it means that the National Assembly passed a law to that effect.
Yes.
But wait, sir. Is the National Assembly failing to see that we are creating a new structure? If interventionist agencies should have their lifespan, why do we need to replicate commissions approved by law? And don't forget, sir, some of these civil servants work in those places.
Yes.
Will retire.
Yes.
By the way,
yeah,
who civil servants are there? Zonal civil servants, state civil servants, federal civil servants?
Federal civil servants.
Federal civil servants.
Yes. I know where you are going to. You are going to pension and gratuity. You see, I have summed up the conversation that what we do is not driven by national interest. It's not driven by rationality. It's not driven by the need to develop. It's driven by, look, we're talking about a democracy where recruitment ought to be democratized. People should have the freedom to apply and being examined based on merit of their capacity and the result they are presenting. I bet you today, employment into civil defense is hijacked by senators. You know why? Because they want to go back to their senatorial zones and flash the names of people that have assisted. This is something that they need to frown at, that merit is not being followed. So a senator submit a list and they type appointment letters based on the list the senators submit.
Appropriated.
House of Assembly members, Federal House of Reps. If you talk about appointment into federal civil service, it's the same thing. It's shared across board. I submit my list, you submit your list. So where's the competitiveness that democracy talked about? So for them, this commission is an achievement. They are going back to their senatorial zone to flout before their people to say, no, I brought this.
Southeast Zonal Commission, yes. Northeast, and now North Central.
Yes, 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 yes. Because they don't even know their functions, that their functions are just two. Lawmaking and what? Investigation into compliance. So the most fundamental aspect of the National Assembly is not even the lawmaking. It's about oversight function. What have you done? So that we know whether there is compliance between what you need to do and what you are doing. And if you want to know, you are here in Nigeria. When the current Senate President was invited to the Senate to come and brief the Senate what is happening at the NDDC. And how did it end? Off the microphone. Off the microphone. He said, no, they shall allow him to speak. They said, no, off the microphone. So I'm just pointing out what you said, the complicity of
the legislature
that needed to ask critical questions. That is exactly what I know. I said something earlier on. I said, I love Mr. President's boldness when he presented the tax reform. Though they wanted to smuggle it through the back door, just the way they did with the North Central Development Commission. But because it is at the heart of the issue you raised, which is restructuring, it led to a debate. And up to today, not much has been achieved. Yes, because you see, what the military did with good intention back then was, okay, we don't want one region to dominate the other or the other region dominating the other. But what they don't understand is you need the weight of every region to balance one another. We lost that. Then we're now in a nostalgic mood. Oh, yesterday was better than today. So why are we always in retrospective?
Celebrating yesterday.
Yes. Okay, yesterday was better than the quality of legislatures. No, the difference between the legislatures of yesterday and today is that the legislatures of yesterday managed their greed. They are able to balance between national interest and personal interest. But today is about personal interest. And that is why the flaws you see in 1999 Constitution was not an issue of omission. It's not printer's devil. They are deliberate lacunas that were created by those that were framing the Constitution to create escape route for themselves. So when you have people that reason this way, where all they think about is their personal interest before national interest, then what you get will be things that will be injurious to the nation. Activities that are geared towards appeasing some persons because of personal interest. Without missing words, we know that some of the things that have been done are geared towards 2027. Nobody is talking about where will Nigeria be in the next 100 years. Now you just ask a critical question. The staff of these development commissions, where would they belong? Of course, the pay at the local government is not attractive, so who will belong there? Is it state government that said they cannot pay 30,000 minimum wage that you want to belong? It's federal government, because the pecs in the office is known as federal government is bigger than anything, and that is the bigger trophy. So we are not against that, but we are saying that why are you occupying this office? Is it for public good or for private good? And if that is the case, then I am sure that Mr. President would have sensed a danger when the agitation started coming up that we need development commission. You would have said, we've given more money to states, we are giving more money to local government, and the Supreme Court judgment that has made local government the third tier of government, and then granting them financial autonomy, are the reforms that we are talking about. That is the fiscal federalism. And then we'll push more money to local government. So if you have any idea about how to move the country forward, go to your local government or go to your state government. But because, and this is the problem again, you know, late President Shehu Shagari in his book, Beckon to Serve, he said when he was supposed to appoint presidential liaison officers across the states then, he thought it was something that was under his prerogative, that you could just say, Mr. Njoku, you are for Abia State, you know, Mr. Chokodi. He said by the time he finished his appointment, that was when the politicians and the traditional rulers started trooping to his office to say Raymond, we did not endorse him. But he knows that Raymond is the most qualified, but they are rejecting him. And what is the problem? They said he doesn't respect elders. How does that affect his capacity to deliver? Now, the trouble with Nigeria is simple. When you give one thing to a region, then it becomes incumbent upon you
to replicate in order to appease,
to make you look nice in the presence of. But in leadership, you are both good and you are both ugly, depending on the circumstances. So I could say no, because I want people to get it based on the fact that they needed it. But what we are doing now is we are condoning governance failure being perpetrated at the state level. And then we are now propping regional
structure
agencies
to be able to solve the failure at that national level
of the states and the
Dr. Hamisi, my producer is giving me a signal that I just have a few more minutes. We've almost run 1 hour. Yeah. Let me just ask. One of the things being conversed on in Nigeria today is bloated bureaucracy.
Yes.
And the government is becoming too big.
Yes.
And bureaucracy is not productive and consumes so much money. By creating these commissions, the federal government is bloating its bureaucracy. How does that go well for resource management and delivering services to those being governed?
Before I answer your question, maybe if I give you this very particular story, it will assist us to contextualize the conversation and help us to put a closure to it. There was a particular state in this country that indulges in doing one thing. At the point of retirement of directors that have served them well, you know, when they say you serve them well, it means you indulge the politicians. So they will elevate you to permanent secretary. Right? Now, they've elevated young persons to the position of permanent secretary, to the extent that by the time they retire, they have like 10 years to live. So the accumulated payment, entitlement they are paying to these permanent secretaries that have retired is taking the chunk of the budget that they needed to recruit younger persons into the civil service. So that the amount became ballooned, and then it's taking almost 70% of recurrent, because, you know, they combine pension and gratuity. This is what is happening in Nigeria. The bureaucracy is not producing what can sustain it, let alone having extra left to do any other thing. On top of that, the bureaucracy is shortchanging the system. Monies appropriated are not going to the intended beneficiaries. Most of the houses, most of the plot, most of the estates are owned by proxies. And then you continue having budget allocation every year.
And they are increasing the number.
The problems are not solved. And then you are now increasing. So, in fact, even to go and defend budget, the National Assembly will have a lot to do. But the simple solution is this. When the Chinese want to develop, because they've read human philosophy, they institutionalize death penalty, because they know that it is only death penalty that can stop average Chinese man from stealing. When Lee Kuan Yew wanted to develop Singapore, what did he do? It was drastic, and he built a very strong and virile judiciary. If you talk, he sues you. He was sued as the president that he facilitated a company that built mass housing for the people, and he bought from that very particular house. And it was alleged that it was a kickback. He was taken to court. He proved the case successfully with all the documents. Well, at the end of the judgment, he was victorious. But do you know what he did? The money awarded to him from that very particular litigation, he donated to charity. Because there is a great danger anywhere in the world when personal interest overrides anything in governance, then it will be about the person. And that is why you aspire to succeed your boss. He sacks you that you want his seat, but the seat is not his father's seat. However good you are. And this is what is happening. You want to appease everybody. In governance, you don't appease everybody. You only appease those deserving to be appeased. Those that are not willing to listen, you know what to do. That is why it's called governance. Governance is about give and take, about saying no, about saying yes to things that you feel should be, okay, yes. Things that's not for yes, if you say yes for political reasons, it will not only haunt you while you're in office, it will haunt you after leaving office. And that is why today, Obasanjo and President Muhammadu Buhari are going to testify in Paris.
They're already back. I do not want to get into that conversation of what happened in Paris.
Yeah.
Charles Dickens, in one of his books, Great Expectations, said, a very favorite line of mine, ask no questions and you'll be told no lies.
Yeah.
I won't ask questions about what happened in Paris, lest I'm told lies. Now, in the past 1 hour or so, I've been conversing with Dr. Abrahaman Abu Hamisu, political scientist, lecturer, University of Abuja. We've been trying to examine whether the president is attempting to enter the kingdom of God through the back door instead of the front door. Is he attempting to restructure Nigeria by other means? Or is he imposing a fourth tier of government? I think the conclusion he made it, he is not. But that trying to appease every section of the country, he shouldn't allow himself to be caught in the web of creating a fourth tier of government. Dr. Abu Hamisu, thank you very much for coming to the program.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure speaking with you.
Well, this program never ends. Tomorrow will still be another day, and my name never changes. It's Mwabu's and Joko. From Abuja, we say good morning.